You know, Dave, you don't have to stand. You can come sit right up here if you like.
Okay.
Anywhere works for us.
Bill might like that better. Where's your microphone?
And Dave, all I'd ask is if there's specific areas, either in the packet or any of the materials that you're referencing that we also have, just to give us a heads up so we can follow along. So if you've
I'll
borrowed
try to
paper,
figure that out, because I think they're pulling from various things.
Right, okay. we are all ears.
Yes. So I need to do my name?
Yes,
Dave
sir.
Conrad. And I suppose I'll start off with, I'm a little confused by a couple of things. And I think my confusion relates to the, trying to compare the budget that was put on the website this week versus the budget discussions that were done in June.
Okay. What are your specific
A
confusions?
combination of that, and perhaps the way this process is a little disjointed, which hopefully I'll make clear. On the budget thing that was put out in June, it showed revenues for the city of being 9.5 million.
Okay.
And then the budget that's put out here on this week shows 10 million in revenues. So I'm focused a lot, although the gross number is not really, I guess, where the issue is. And I see that the expenses, although the focus has been largely on trying to cut expenses, I see that the expenses in the budget put out this week is a couple $100,000 higher than that budget number.
Okay. I don't have either of those documents in front of me, so I'm going to need to,
Dave?
Well, that should be there.
but I don't have what was put on the website in June.
V1 would be where your revenues are.
Just sort of to remind people, the object is to take comments.
Right.
So you take all the comments, and then we respond to it typically after the hearing.
Got you. Okay. All right, Dave?
Okay. So I guess the key point, and then I'm assuming that, I don't know what you guys clarify, using this document,
What document are you referring to, Dave?
which is, I
goes to
think
the
was in the
council.
packet, but I think this represents your budget resolution and what you're going to be working on.
It goes to the county, budget transform.
It's the public hearing notice that you placed in the paper.
Okay.
Was it in
Specific
this
comments
thing?
are about it?
No. it's
And
in
so I'm taking it, the general fund pays for the first two lines on that, the 10,000,003, and the debt service? Is that my understanding?
There's a debt service fund that the city has, in which we levy money.
Does that 10 million in general fund revenues pay for that?
No,
Or that's separate? So,
it's separate.
so when you're looking at the 10 million versus of revenue, and you've got 10.3 million in expenditures, you're basically saying that you're budgeting a deficit of about 300,000 then.
Correct.
Okay. And then where the process is disjointed, I mean, you've got to send something in for the state and the county
Right.
this month, but you're going to be tweaking these numbers between now and the end of the year, right? So
Yes, you can.
I don't know whether that's an issue or not, because I know you have a budget resolution that says you want staff to cut $250,000 out of the budget, which I'm assuming is yet to come out of here. Is that right or not?
No, there has been.
So that's already out of it. Okay, so there's still a $300,000 shortfall potential. Okay.
Other comments, Dave?
So let me look at it. And then you also, in the budget resolution, well, no, it's not budget. You also, I believe, have probably budgeted but unfilled positions in the budget yet, right?
That is correct.
Do you know how many of those there are and what their salaries might be?
I have a Public Works Director position, Director of Infrastructure, which you just be Steve Weeks, Neighborhood Services, so that's 3 net 2. So it's 2 positions that are unfilled. And then we have some early retirements that we're working on within the rest of our full-time city staff.
So
Sounds
if
like
you don't fill those, does that mean your budget will be in balance?
pending whatever payout is reached, similar to what the state of Kansas is offering to 4,000 employees, which is, for a while, you're going to be carrying an expense, but in time, yes, they go away.
Okay. But does that mean next year's budget is balanced yet, or?
No, we're still working on it.
Okay. And so, I don't know if there's a reason for making some of these comments, trying to get to that now, is I don't think there's a place to do this later, right? This is your only public meeting on the budget.
Oh, no, you can talk about our budget at any meeting during the
We've had-
Oh, it's a public hearing process, okay. So, well, I'd like to say that it seems to me that one of the advantages of the recession is, I think the recession has been the friend of taxpayers, because the it was the 2009 budget would have been 40% higher than 2004, and I'm just looking at the general fund when I say that, which is net of capital outlays. And it looks to me like your budget for this year is only going to be 23% of 2004, so that's pretty much level spending. Although I know there's been a lot of talks like there might be cuts. I don't see any cuts out there. It's just pretty much level the last 3 or 4 years. The spending for police, parks and rec, and that have not gone down.
Well,
And they have stayed the same
yeah,
the last 2 or 3
the,
years.
the benefit side hasn't increased.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
you're shrinking something. You have increases in the places, which are canceling out other spots, so that's good. There's a capital improvement fund in there. It says 6.5 million. It doesn't really, I didn't see a place that said what that would be for next year. There's other construction projects going on.
Yeah, it would be Johnson Drive and Martway. And it's just a planning number that we use in our CIP.
And that's the number we use as our portion of the match. Leverage a lot of additional dollars.
Is that, do you have different revenue for that besides, that's not coming from the general fund at this point? And that's obviously way more than what the
Right.
transportation utility fee will pay for.
It-
It's in anticipation of bond
Seeds
proceeds
for
for Johnson Drive
driving.
and Martway, plus intergovernmental revenue from cars.
So if you pass a quarter-cent sales tax and you're able to issue 4.5 to 5 million, that would be the revenue source. And then the cars reimbursement that you would be eligible for on Martway and Johnson Drive as well as STP and Bridge money.
Are you already assuming the quarter-cent sales tax? Is that what you're telling me in there?
Yeah, you can assume it, you don't have to spend
Oh,
it.
okay. Already assuming quarter-cent sales tax.
Because if you don't have the budget authority, say it passed, we wouldn't have budget authority, so you couldn't spend it. So you'd have to come back and get budget authority to spend it.
Right. Well, that's what makes it hard to figure out where, there's lots of floating parts running around, which makes it a little,
Well, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot
Yeah.
of competing interests, and, I do want you to appreciate that we're allowing a lot of latitude. I mean, this is
I
normally
understand.
like a city council meeting where we
Right.
offer comments, and it's not a dialogue,
That's
it's a
right.
monologue, and trying to be as patient here as I can.
I'm just
so-
trying to make it,
I understand, David.
and clarify, not just
Understood,
for you guys, but
understood.
for other folks as well, so hopefully. The community center, I saw Nike had a schedule last week that showed that the subsidy was only 400,000, but the budget, which is at B20, indicates that it needs a subsidy of about 620,000. I'm not going to quite figure out where the gap was, the difference in that.
I think the table that I showed was cash subsidy through 2010. And then I compared it to the audit, and I said the difference between the audit and the actual, because I wanted to show actual cash basis, is that in the audit, we accumulate depreciation of the building, so it's a larger number. When you look at our CAFR, the subsidy is $250,000 to $300,000 larger.
Yeah.
And I said it's important to look at what I call the CAFR number compared to the cash basis number, because it at least accounts for the cost of the building. If you don't, you never see the cost of the building until you start spending money to replace it.
Yeah, but if you're looking at B20 and comparing it to the revenues of B1, there's about a 600,000 gap there, and B20 doesn't have depreciation in it at all.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
So there's the 600, if you had depreciation in, the gap should be then higher than the 600,
Oh, yeah,
the
it would
250.
be.
So it's about an $850,000 gap in the community center.
is fairly consistent with what we've always said.
Yeah, I just, this chart last week threw me off there,
Gotcha.
so. And I see on the outdoor swimming pool, I guess you guys are already planning a lot for sales tax that hasn't been done yet. Mike was trying to, I guess, I'm assuming you wrote it, that document on page 10 about the fund, but you're already going to parcel off $250,000 of it for a fund for equipment, which you probably need, because right now, community center's not paying for its depreciation, which is a cost, and so it does
Correct.
cover that. But if the sales tax, a quarter cent sales tax, has been discussed at other meetings, is only going to bring in about $500,000, that leaves you only about $250,000 to potentially pay for a new swimming pool. Is that
That would be correct.
an adequate number for that? That doesn't seem like, if you're talking $4 or $5 million, that doesn't seem like that's going to,
That wouldn't be enough.
so something else has to happen.
Right.
And then you still, people are moving forward, I guess, with the task force, but nobody's actually addressed the fact that there's still a operating cost component that needs to be paid for.
That would be true.
And that's,
And the operating cost of the pool that's in the task force plan would be $200,000 more than our current operating costs.
200,000 more. Well, now you're saying gross, I'm thinking of net. Right now, there's a shortfall of about 125,000, and you're saying that's going to go up some. Yeah. And so you've got a budget right now that doesn't balance, and you want to add more to it. Right, is my interpretation. So
Could be.
I can leave it at that. So then I suppose the only question on, I was also curious, having looked at Overland Park's budgets recently, because that's where I'm a resident, and Shawnee's budgets, I see that they have information that suggests that the number of police officers you need is 1.5 to 1.7 police officers per thousand. So based on the number of residents in Mission, that would seem to imply that we have maybe more police officers than we need. So I wonder if anybody's done any benchmarking there to see.
Yeah, when you do that, one of the things that you have to take into account is daytime population. So the daytime population, the number of people that are going through Mission, is probably a factor of 2.5 times the nighttime population. So if you go to a daytime population number, which sometimes generates a lot of the crime in our community, that would change that 1.7.
I know they have inflows and outflows that
Yeah.
I don't have the information. I just wonder if somebody's been benchmarking. I feel they have economies of scale, and it seems to me that maybe, I mean, Overland Park is, 30 times the size of Mission, but their police force apparently is only 10 times the size of Mission.
Don't you have to look at geography too, where Overland Park is somewhat cushioned between there and us? We have several components on the peripheral of Mission.
Probably
Also-
the best is, if you saw today, did you read today's Wednesday neighborhood section? Where Overland Park has eliminated 100 positions in the last 2 years, but added 60 police officers. And some of those are in next year's budget, so you have to start looking at what their total.
Well, I did look at next year's budget for
Yeah.
300
How
police
many
officers.
officers did they have?
Well,
Let's
theirs
keep
is
this-
split up into two groups.
I'd like to keep this on our budget,
Yeah.
not Overland Park Police Force.
That's fine. Their patrol division's only 180.
Let's keep this on our budget if we could, please.
So anyway, it seems to me that potentially there would be some efficiencies with contracting that out.
Absolutely. And each department goes through an audit and police.
We just finished in November, December.
Yep.
And the chief has it, and he'll be back in September with sort of his summary of the audit and the changes that he's proposing.
And when you say changes, you mean could include cuts as well as other
Yes.
things. Got it. Dave, anything else?
And like the budget came out, I guess the full budget now is on the website, and we've had a lot of meetings, which in my mind might have been, some of the meetings have asked for a lot of citizen input, and I think that's good, but it seems to me maybe there's been a little bit of a cart before the horse thing there. I mean, we have yet to really hear what you all think about where you might cut or have proposed anything to do. And since you're the leadership, I think at some point somebody has to say how you're going to make all this work. I don't know when that will be, but it hasn't been today, so we look forward to hearing that.
All right, Dave. Thank you for coming. Other comments from the public on the 2012 budget? Seeing there's no further comments on the 2012 budget, this hearing will be closed. The next item is a second public hearing. This will be on Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1. Is there any public comment at this time relative to Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1 in the 2012 budget? Seeing none, we'll close this hearing. And then the final hearing is on Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2, the 2012 budget. Any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the